Okay, so today what we're going to be working on is solving quadratics by completing the square. So the reason why we have to have completing the square quadratic formula is because not every quadratic is factorable. All right, so I want you to try this. I'm going to start you off. It says, what is the standard form for a quadratic equation? The standard form for a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. The a is what's in front of the x squared. The b is the number that's in front of x. C is the number that has no x. All right, so what I want you to do on your own is make sure all of these are in the standard form, so that means they have to be equal to 0, and then I want you to identify A, B, and C. So put me on pause and then give that a try. Okay, so number 1, it is in standard form. Right, I have my x squared first, my x, and then my number that has no x, and it is equal to 0. So your a is what's in front of your x squared. So a, for the first one, is equal to 3. Your b is what's in front of x, that's positive 5, and c is the number that has no x. That's called your constant. That's negative 2. All right, let's take a look at number 2. It's not in the correct form because it's not equal to 0. So remember, we always like to keep x squared positive, so I'm going to add 2x to both sides and minus 7. Add 2x minus 7 from both sides. I get x squared plus 2x minus 7 equals 0. Remember, a is what's in front of x squared. There is no number, so that means it's 1. B is the number that's in front of x, which is 2. C is the number that has no x. That's negative 7, and remember, that's called your constant. All right, number 3. Again, not in the correct form, and I also notice I have a negative x squared. So that means I want to move everything on the left to the right so that my x squared will become positive x squared. So I'm going to add x squared minus 6x. Make sure you put it in the right order. So I'm going to get 0 on the left. I'm going to get my x squared first, minus my 6x, and then my plus 15. Remember, a is what's in front of x squared, so that's 1. B is the number that's in front of x, that's negative 6. And c is the number that has no x. Remember, that's called your constant, okay? And that's 15. All right, so let's talk about completing the square. Here's the steps. It's a lot of steps, but you'll be able to do it. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is make sure it's in standard form. So you want your x squared first, your x, and then your c, and make sure it's equal to 0. Make sure you have a 1 in front of the x squared. So you can't have 2x squared, you can't have 3x squared, it has to be 1x squared. If there is a number in front of the x squared other than 1, divide everything by that number. Move the constant, that's the c, that's the one that doesn't have an x, to the other side. Then you're going to do half of the b value, that's the number in front of x, and then you're going to square it and add it to both sides. You're going to add the numbers on the right. You're going to factor the trinomial on the left. Now, when you factor the trinomial on the left, you're going to get two of the same parentheses. You're going to have an x and x. It'll either be a plus plus or it'll be minus minus, and I'm going to tell you how to figure that out. And your number will be the same. Now, there's an easy way to figure out what that number is that goes inside. Okay? And then, so to figure that out, it's the number that you squared that goes inside. And then you do want to write this, and I forgot to write this down. After you get that, after you get this, write it as x plus or minus the number, whatever it is, squared. Okay? And then you're going to square root both sides. Don't forget to put the plus minus in front of the radical. Simplify the radical and solve for x. All right, so we're ready to get started. Okay, so the first example, we have x squared plus 12x minus 45 equals 0. It is in standard form. I have a 1 in front of the x squared, which is what I want. The next thing we have to do is move the constant, that's your c value, move it over. So we're going to add 45 to both sides. So we have x squared plus 12x equals 45. All right, the next thing we're going to do is do half of the b value. Now make sure you keep the sign with the number. It's half of positive 12, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Half of positive 12 is positive 6. Notice I wrote the positive 6 in there. Then we're going to square that number. That's 36. Then you take that number, add it to this side, add it over to that side. So that we get x squared plus 12x plus 36 equals 45 plus 36. Now you're going to add these numbers on the right. So that is 81. We're going to factor this side. You're going to get the same parentheses. It's going to be XX. Now remember, I said the number that goes in here is the number that you squared. What number did we square? Positive 6. That's why I said to watch the sign. Keep the sign with it. So I know that it's plus 6, not a minus. All right, now notice I have the same parentheses. So another way to write x plus 6 times x plus 6 is x plus 6 squared equals 81. All right, now how do we get rid of a square? Hopefully remember you square root. So we get x plus 6 because the square and the square root cancel each other out. The square root of 81 is 9. And don't forget you have to have plus minus because when you square root something, it's plus minus. Now we're going to solve for x. So minus 6. X equals, put the minus 6 in front of the plus minus. So it's negative 6 plus minus 9. All right, now we're going to separate this and finish it up. You have to finish this because these are rational. So it's x equals negative 6 plus 9, which is 3. X equals negative 6 minus 9, which is negative 15. So those are my answers, 3 and negative 15. All right, so let's take a look at number 2. I'm going to get rid of this stuff over here on the left. All right, so number 2 here. So I notice a few things going on here. It's not in the right form because I have it equal to 14. So I have to move the 14 over to the left so that it's equal to 0. So I'm going to minus 14 from both sides. So I get 2x squared minus 28x minus 46 equals 0. All right, now we're not ready to complete the square yet because I have a 2 in front of the x squared. That number has to be a 1. So you're going to divide everything by 2 so that I get x squared minus 14x minus 23 equals 0. Now remember, we're going to now move the constant over to the other side so that I get x squared minus 14x, that cancels, equals 23. All right, now we're ready to do half of b. So we're going to do half of b. b, watch the signs, is negative 14. Watch the sign. Half of negative 14 is negative 7. Square it, you get positive 49. Watch the sign. Take the 49, add it to the right, and add it over to the left. So that we get x squared minus 14x plus 49 equals 23 plus 49. You're going to clean up the right side by adding those together, and you get 72. On the left side, you're going to factor. Remember, you get the same parentheses, so it's x and x. Remember, the number that goes inside here is the number that you squared. We squared negative 7. That's why it's so important to keep your signs together. Write it as x minus 7 squared. Oops, sorry. X minus 7 squared equals 72. All right, so how do we get rid of the square? You're going to square root both sides. The square root and the square cancel each other out. So I'm left with x minus 7 equals, don't forget the plus minus in front of the 72. All right, now we do have a square root that you can simplify. Find the largest perfect square that goes into, sorry about that, my dog's going crazy. All right, so the largest perfect square that goes into 72 is 36. 36 times 2. The square root of 36 is 6, so it's 6 the square root of 2. Bring down the plus minus. And then we have x minus 7 on the left side of the equal sign. We're not done because we didn't solve for x yet. So now we add 7 to both sides. So I get x equals, put the 7 in front of the plus minus, just like we did with the last problem. 7 plus minus 6 the square root of 2. You cannot, we're going to separate them. 7 plus 6 the square root of 2. You cannot add them and you cannot subtract them because they are not like terms. One has a square root. The other one does not. You cannot add them. They are irrational roots. We're done. Okay, so everybody we'll practice some more tomorrow. Everybody have a good night.